That's what happened, sir, I believe.
No, sir, I don't. You were not. Excuse me, sir. You were not in the room. Let me answer the question. You were not in the room.
I've got the microphone,
sir. You've said that.
I had no idea.
Secondly, sir, let me finish.
All right, there's just a little taste of Governor Chris Christie, ladies and gentlemen, to set the tone for this next segment. And I got to tell you, yesterday we addressed this, and I addressed this months ago when this first came to light. This new rule that all New Jersey high school athletes have to be made aware of. Joining us now to talk about this is Larry White, Assistant Director of the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association. Hello, sir. How are you?
Okay. How are you?
I'm okay. All right. Let me set the scene a little bit. My son has played organized ball since he was, I guess, since T-ball. He's now turning 14. He's been on travel teams, baseball, ever since he was 7. He played on travel basketball and blah, 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 blah in New Jersey. And he hopes to play high school baseball as well if he's fortunate enough to do that. Trash talking, to an extent, has always been an accepted part of sports. Nobody wants, it to get overboard, and certainly ethnic slurs or anything of that nature should be dealt with appropriately, maybe suspending the child or pulling him from the game, certainly. But tell me why New Jersey felt it was necessary to do what no one else in the nation, as far as I know, has done, and that's take it even further.
Well, I believe that happened, or we decided to take this further when we were confronted with a situation that happened last Thanksgiving Day, a football game between two of our member schools. It's documented that it was Bergen Catholic and Paramus Catholic. We got a letter from a group called the Coalition of Racial Equality. It was sent to us. It was sent to the state attorneys general, where they alleged some pretty horrific stuff that was going on in terms of racial baiting and slurs, so forth and so on. Our data didn't really say that we were getting a lot of calls, if any, or disqualification reports because of this, but because of the nature of this particular incident and the fact that the Attorney General's office got involved through the Division of Civil Rights. We had a meeting with them, and we decided that we needed to stop this, or at least do what we can to try to stop it ASAP. So
based really on one incident?
Well, based on one incident that was of a major incident, but we probably also know that those type of things were going on. We weren't necessarily getting reports of it, either from the officials. I think the officials tended to try to handle, if they heard these things, by way of officiating or trying to be proactive and not, disqualify players and things of that nature. But at this point, we said, you know what, maybe it's a good time to really look at this, and let's try to put some teeth into it and stop something. Our point has always been that any type of taunting, baiting, trash talking, and those type of racial, ethnic slurs are not tolerated, condoned in the classroom. Interscholastic sports and the fields, the courts, the rinks, they are extensions of the classroom.
All right, but there were already, like you said, there were already provisions in place where a referee or an official or another coach could complain or a player could complain. You're focusing on one major incident, and I don't know if that got violent or not, but one major incident, and now New Jersey. And here's where I really have the problem. I mean, you want to kick the kid out of the game or suspend the kid. I think you could have done that without this rule. And by the way, we should explain to the people, why don't you explain? There are how many words now that cannot be uttered by anybody on a playing field or ice rink or as you point out, basketball court? There's a list of words. How many do they number?
Well, we don't say that there's a list of words. We have them in general classes, and our statement basically reads any verbal, written, or physical conduct related to race, gender, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, or religion shall not be tolerated, could subject the violator to ejection and may result in penalties being assessed against your team.
Okay, but it goes beyond that, does it not? Does it not go to then possibly to the Attorney General's Civil Rights Division of the state of New Jersey?
Our sportsmanship rule that is in our Constitution and bylaws has been amended that if this office should get a report of a bias incident, that the executive director, which is Steve Timko, the executive director of NJSIA, has at his power to do several things, and one of them, yes, reporting it to the Attorney General's office, to the Division on Civil Rights.
So if the kid says something that you find unacceptable based on the generalization of statements that you give while you don't give specific words, and if someone uses one of those words in a way that, I don't know, that is viewed as purposeful, hurtful, I don't know, then what's the worst that could happen to a kid?
Well,
if it goes to the Civil Rights Division, what's the worst that could happen?
That would be up to the Division.
Yeah, but what's the worst that could happen? I mean, taking it to the extreme, what could happen to this kid? Go to jail, be arrested, have a black mark on his career forever? What could happen?
We don't know because we haven't got there.
Okay, but what does the law allow? Let me rephrase it as a lawyer, I guess, which I'm not, but I love to play one. What would the law allow in the extreme?
Well, the Division on Civil Rights may have some penalties that they have that they may be able to met out. You know, if these situations got to them, we don't know. I don't know what they are in terms of what they can do and what they can't.
Okay, so you don't know what the Division of Civil Rights could do, yet you allow it to go to that distance in your bylaws and Constitution or whatever you just referred to. Doesn't seem to make sense to me, allowing that as an option when you don't even know, or at least you're telling me you don't know, what that could mean ultimately for a kid in the extreme under the law.
Well, once again, if the report comes to us and the executive director, well, I'm sure in consultation with our lawyer, would deem the offense to be that egregious that it needed to go to the Civil Rights Division, then that's the call that would be made. We don't anticipate these type of situations necessarily having to go to the Civil Rights Division. We have put into place that the disqualification if a player or coach uses a racial slur and it's heard by the officials, and we feel that that would be handled just as we handle other disqualifications, maybe of a unsportsmanlike physical nature, where the student is disqualified, they sit our subsequent game penalty, and the school then would handle it on their end. But if it were something of a major nature, where maybe a brawl broke out and something like that, then yeah, I could see where that would be something we would say.
Okay, but it's subjective, is it not? In other words, sir, there's nothing that says a brawl would have to break out. I mean, it's very subjective, and you leave that in there, that possibility in there, which again, I don't really understand why you would do that. We're talking to Larry White, Assistant Director of the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Let me play you something Chris Christie said once in defense of his outbursts. Granted, they're not racial, but he's been accused of other things, among other things, of being rude, abrasive, hurtful, a bully. And you know, it makes me laugh in a sad way that this is what he said. Here's cut 5, Will. Cut 5.
Here's the thing. You know, maybe this will help explain it to you a little bit. I have an Irish father. And I had, before she passed away 6 years ago, a Sicilian mother. Now, for those of you who have been exposed to the combination of Irish and Sicilian, it has made me not unfamiliar with
All right. First of all, he just used Irish and Sicilian as, you know, in a fun way, an excuse for his abrasiveness, his rudeness, or whatever, which I don't think would fly if a kid came to you and said, hey, you know, I have an Irish mother and an Italian father, or vice versa. You got to give me a break. And number two, what if a kid on the field said, hey, what do you got, an Irish mother and an Italian father? he'd probably wind up in the Civil Rights Division. So how do you reconcile this?
Well, first off, I think you're taking something out of context. And number two...
Well, how am I taking it out of context?
Well, number one, you're taking what Chris Christie said out of context and trying to put it into the context of what our new policy
Well, no, that's not taking something out of context. Taking something out of context, that statement out of context would have been if Chris Christie was explaining why he has dark hair. No, he's explaining why he's abrasive, why he's rude, why he's, been perceived as a bully, and he attributes it to his ethnicity. And I'm saying, what if a kid tried to do that?
But he's making that statement about himself. He's not making that statement against another.
Okay, but if a kid used that as an excuse as to why he was rude or bullying, you wouldn't accept that.
Wait, if a kid says, well, Mr. Officer or Mr. Official.
Yeah, my mother's Italian, my father's Irish. You got to give me a break. What do you expect?
Well, once again, our policy is if those type of slurs are directed against another player.
No, my point is he said some slur. That's one point, but that's not my major point. My point is he's guilty of saying something else independent of his own heritage to another player, and then his defense, as Chris Christie's defense is here, is, hey, what do you expect? My mother's Irish or my father's Italian. But that aside, what if a kid directs at another kid who maybe gets angry, runs the bases, throws his helmet down, and the kid says, hey, what do you got, an Italian mother and an Irish father? That kid could wind up in the Civil Rights Division. And It's the same thing Chris Christie just said.
I would believe that would result in, if the umpire, since it's a baseball reference, heard it, felt that it was an ethnic slur, the kid could be disqualified. And I believe if it was of that nature, then it would just be a disqualification. It would not necessarily have to come down to NJSIA as a report that would elicit our executive director to say, well, I need to take this to the civil rights.
But don't you see how crazy this is? You're telling me the kid would get thrown out for the same thing Christie said, and you don't think it would come to the point where it would go to the Civil Rights Division, but you don't know because it's up to it's very subjective. This whole thing is kind of crazy, isn't it?
No, we don't believe it is, because that's why we're enforcing it, because we think that it has gone over the top.
Does Chris Christie go over the top?
I'm not going to comment on what Chris Christie does.
Oh, so the governor shouldn't be held up as an example one way or another.
Well, he is who he is.
Oh, and if a kid's parents said, hey, my son is who he is.
NJSIA doesn't, set the rules for, the governor of the state. We set the rules for high school sports.
Okay. Well, I just think there's a reason why this is the only rule of its kind or program of its kind or setup of its kind in the nation, and I think it's just a huge mistake. You're also leaving it up to the referee, the umpire, whatever, who has a lot going on. What if they think, let me give you one final question, Larry, and I appreciate you being with us. What if they think they hear something? What if they think they hear it?
They've been told that they should not guess.
Should not
guess as to what, just like with a call, any call on any sport, you don't guess at what you think you saw. If you see it, you call it. In this particular case, we're saying if you hear it, you identified the player or coach that said it, you make the call.
And what if he's wrong? What if the kid says, I didn't say it, and the referee says, yes, you did? I mean, the kid could have his future ruined.
That's why we're telling the officials they must be sure that they hear it. They can't guess.
Okay. Well, that's not going to stop them from thinking they heard it when they maybe didn't. I mean, this is so subjective and so arbitrary.
So have you ever officiated?
I've played umpire for my son's Little League once or twice.
Okay. Well, most of our officials, especially on the varsity level, they're experienced.
They're human. They can make a mistake.
Human. That's true. They can make
mistakes. And this could go to the Civil Rights Division on a mistake, sir. And that is outrageous for a child.
We tell them.
I know you do, and they have the best of intentions, but they could make a mistake. And I wouldn't have a problem if the kid got kicked out for a mistake. But civil rights division games, that's a whole different ball game, and I think this is way over the line.
That's your opinion.
Yes, it is, and you have yours, and I respect it. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Larry White, ladies and gentlemen, Assistant Director of the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association. Boy, do I want to know what you think about this. When we come back, we have some more Chris Christie. I thought that was brilliant on my part, I must say so. And if I had my full voice, it would have sounded even more brilliant. Pointing out Christie saying, well, you know, my father's Sicilian, my mother's Irish, or vice versa. I'm not meaning to insult his family. So what do you expect? Imagine if a kid said that. Or if a kid said that to another kid. Hey, what do you got, an Italian mother, an Irish father? Calm down. They'd go to the Civil Rights Division, possibly. I love, he says, we don't have laws that enforce the governor of the state. Okay, what do you think? What do you think? Does this go way too far, or am I out of line? 855-777-9660, 855-777-9660, right here on your Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.